Is what I got.
Oh,
Hi there, this is Nick, Zagar and Remy Isdaner. We are Mirlo Real Estate Partners, and today we have Kevin Klingshirn here at the Dentaligentsia podcast, where we help our dental clients and business owners make the best decisions for their businesses. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
good. How are you, Nick?
Doing great, man. It's so awesome to have you on. Uh, we're always excited to have somebody who really knows uh, a certain aspect. We understand the real estate aspect of the dental business, but demographics and obviously your company Dentagraphics is a key player in helping our clients make the best decisions. And so maybe you can talk to us a little bit more about your company and the history, how you got there, what you do, and why you do it.
Sure. So again, Kevin with Dentagraphics. Dentagraphics is we here at the company we call it dental market analysis, and then we do more now, but like our traditional wheelhouse, so to speak, that a lot of people know us for is helping doctors figure out where to start practices and buy practices. So demographic research, competition research, so that industry, a phrase that gets thrown around a lot is dental demographics. We prefer the term dental market research. So helping doctors figuring out, okay, I'm in Rochester Hills, Michigan. I live right here. I'll go within a 30-minute drive time in any direction. You tell me what you think are the best communities, neighborhoods, submarkets, pockets, etc., whatever you want to call them, for me to do my dental startup. We go to work on it. We get back with the doctor. We say, hey, we recommend you prioritize your search in this town, that town, this town, and that town. And then we can hand the report over to somebody like you who actually knows where inventory of available properties might be. And you kind of just use it all as like a cross reference, right? Like it's not an exact science like, okay, demographics recommended I go here. I need to go here. There's got to be a property here. There might not be. There also might be like a B-rated property, which, okay, can we find an A-rated property and also a top-rated market? So it's all sort of like a balancing act, but we definitely work complementary alongside real estate, which we don't do. We've been around for 10 years at this point. I've been on board for 8 of those 10 years. We started the company, my business partner now, Kent Miller, he started the company 10 years ago in Austin. Him and I were friends. We went to Ohio State together. So I kind of just got looped in because we were both living in Austin at the time that he started the company. A year and a half went by when he was just starting to figure it out, like again, how to do this or how to run a company. Being a mid-20s guy, doing it for the first time, and pretty soon he kind of got a little business rolling. And before not too long, he went to me and he said, "Hey, I am having trouble keeping up with everything on my own. Would you have any interest?" And at the time, I was working for a startup in Austin in sales, didn't love it. So without hesitation, I was like, yeah, I'm down. So I jumped right on board, and then him and I have kind of been tag teaming the business now to the present day. And again, so going back about 10 years to where we're at now, we've grown in terms of products. We've grown in terms of just overall company size. We went from 1 to 2 to now about 10. But still today, Kent and I are both like the main doctor facing side. We do, appearances like this. We're the ones that are going to the dental shows and manning the booth and all that. So that's a quick about us.
We love what you bring to the table. It's so complimentary, and honestly, we wouldn't be able to do or achieve the outcomes in a lot of our projects without your information and and work. So can you talk to us a bit about how you interpret and hold doctors' hands through the data evaluation process or the market analysis? Because I've seen these reports over the years, and I feel like I'm in the Matrix movies watching code flow down the screen. I don't know. It's it would be impossible to derive any kind of conclusions from it without knowing better. So I know you guys do a lot as far as interpreting the data and providing feedback to
Mhm.
help. So can you talk to us about how you do that?
Yeah. So I think it can be really simple, um, because it sort of is. We work with a doctor where our goal is to find an underserved area that's also practical, that also matches the doctor's practice strategy. And when I say practice strategy, I'm talking about ideal patient type. So again, the three things there are competition, not everything, but of course, less is better. It's got to be practical. So that comes down to, you're not going to open over a national park or an airport. You're going to open where there just are people living. And then that third thing, those people should be what a doctor is going for. So if you want to do more restorative dental care, uh, can we find an area maybe middle to upper middle income where median age is 42 plus and it's strong home ownership? And if we want to look at education, do you want to serve more like the middle class blue collar or white collar upper middle class? That's all figuring out, okay, doctor's practice strategy. Can we find, again, going back to it, an area where it's underserved, it's practical, so it makes sense. And then lastly, that potential patient base matches what the doctor has in mind. Because maybe you're not going to hit a home run on all three of those fronts, but it's got to come into place a little bit. If it's super, super, super competitive, but it also matches your practice strategy, well, we're hitting on two of those, three things. We're sort of compromising a little bit. Can we find an area where, at least across the three, it makes somewhat sense?
Sure. And I spoke a bit about some of those successes that we've had working with you guys. Can you tell us about one in particular that you are proud of, or that's that people would want to hear about?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we've worked with, uh, I mean, literally thousands and thousands of doctors across the country. So a lot of them are going to be first timers that come to us. A lot of them are, when I say first timers, I mean first time starters or buyers. So, hey, I'm an associate. I've been an associate for 4 or 5 years. I'm ready to jump into practice ownership. One thing about us is we're usually step one, or if we're not step one, we're one of the beginning steps. So, okay, you decide you want to do a startup. We're going down that road. One of the first things that doctors are sort of like brought up or trained to do is figure out, like demographics. That's where we come into play. So then again, we're working with that doctor for the first time. And there's honestly so many that there's not too many that even stand out because we've just repeated the process over and over and over and over again. Where associate comes to us looking to start my practice. We've worked in all 50 states at this point. Any major market we've worked in 100 times over. Okay, I'm in Metro Detroit. I'm an associate in Rochester Hills. I'll start anywhere within a half hour. Go out and figure out what are going to be the communities, sub-markets. I use the term sub-market a lot that make the most sense. Okay, we carve it up. We hand that report back to associate doctor. Associate doctor then takes it to their real estate company. Company can go out and figure out properties that make sense. We work back and forth on the site selection process. Okay, you found 3 properties. Send all 3 to us. We'll give a quick glance at them and say like, hey, I think this one looks a little bit stronger. This one doesn't look so strong. Okay, the one that I said looked a little bit stronger. Maybe we hone in on that one. Balancing everything like what Dentagraphics says, which is potential patient base, competition, the demographics of it, with your own personal fondness of the area. So that's the doctor figuring out like, do I like this community? Do I like this area where Dentagraphics said I should consider starting? And then also the real estate terms. So does the property fit what you have in mind? Are the terms good? Are there going to be tenant improvements? All that stuff that we don't deal with. It's got to be balanced into the kind of final decision-making process. Okay, I found a site. I really like it. I like everything or as much as I possibly can. It's kind of dwarfing the other ones that I've looked at so far in terms of pros. Let's move forward. And, a lot of times that's just how the process sort of starts with. Doctor comes to us just with the dream of wanting to start their own practice. And then, okay, found location and, our work, I guess, there is done.
So when they when they have some sort of decision making matrix, when they kind of take the data analytics and then the potential deal terms, for example, and kind of try to rate those, like how you know uh, how does the data, or what type of data, maybe let me rephrase that whole question. What type of data should a a startup dentist be looking for? What are the right ratios of you know bodies
Okay.
to other docs?
Sure. So if you want to talk about competition, we recommend seeking out a minimum of 2,000 residents per practice. I think 3,000 to one might be even a more, uh, maybe conservative, kind of benchmark to work off of. So a competitive market is going to be 1,200 residents per practice, 1,500 residents per practice. And then when I say 1,500 residents per practice, what do I mean? It's, within a scale of analysis. So in this case, we would take like a center point and place a circle over that center point. In a lot of metro areas, we'd use a 3-mile radius. Within 3 miles, a good target would be, can we be above 2,000 or 3,000 residents per practice? In a lot of areas in Metro Detroit that are the more mature markets, you're going to have 1,200 residents per practice, 1,500 residents per practice. Those are competitive areas. And I would never tell somebody to walk away from a startup location because it's too competitive. I'd say that you should definitely be aware that you're in a competitive market, especially if we find other areas nearby that aren't nearly as competitive. But if your dream is to start there no matter what, even if the data says it looks a little too competitive for our liking, start there. It's not like the end all be all thing that's going to have control over a practice's success,
This is
but it
a really
certainly matters.
interesting topic I want to drill into it, because we can go down the rabbit hole pretty far, because what we're, there's obviously certain communities where people want to be, or where you see growth, and you see, or they're, they may be what people would think of as, an ideal place to live, or a community that they would really, they could really want to spend their life there and be the doctor at that in that town. But it may have really, really, you know, bad, you know, data, demographics behind it, or meaning more competition. But how do you work that into the fact that there's probably, you know, maybe a silver wave of retirements and other, other, you know, other types of factors, which, maybe consolidations, or, it seems like there's a lot of turnover and a lot of stuff going on. How does the data kind of help them interpret that type of information?
Yeah, and a lot of what we do, we're going to report on what we call character competition, which is like, okay, how aggressive are all these practices looking to be, maybe from a surface level. So if you look at things like, the 20 nearest practices around me, if I'm in a more mature market of Metro Detroit, a lot of the practice owners might be like 60, 65 plus. They don't even have a website. It's hard to tell if they're even open. So while the sheer number of competing practices could be high, I do think it's important to note that that example versus Austin, Texas, or Raleigh, North Carolina, or Las Vegas, those are all like newer markets where all the doctors are younger and more aggressive in terms of uh, marketing, and clearly on the newer side too, meaning they're not planning on going anywhere, and they're probably planning on growing more from where the practices stand today. So certainly a factor that we encourage people to think about as well. So if you're in any mature market in the country, so to me, that's like Detroit or Chicago or Boston or New Jersey, where they've been competitive for years and years, a lot of those doctors probably are on their way out. So maybe it's a good place to buy a practice, but also while they are traditionally more competitive, I do think it's worth just being aware. Typical doctor, median age of practice owner, probably going to be a little bit higher. So that's a good thing, again, even though, or like you said, silver lining, while the competition, just numbers wise, can be pretty steep.
I think it's fascinating to to look at. I think you called it a character
Character of
competition.
competition. Yeah.
Character of competition. And it's fascinating because we have conversations often because we see this where you do have will be first time practice owners contemplating a startup, and it is scary going into really most places where you'd want to be in the metro area have some degree of healthy competition, and and at first blush you're looking at a sheer number, to your point, and that might be concerning to some degree, but a closer look shows that a lot of those doctors do have either they're later in their careers, or they don't have websites, and it's hard to tell that they're even open. And I
Right.
can't imagine something scarier to established doctors than a new doctor coming in and building a brand new state of the art practice, hiring, attracting and retaining talent in that space, and then starting to compete. I mean, there's different ways to look at that, and that's not a data driven analysis that I just shared. It's more of a gut check, and something that we do see in the market. But that's I feel like that's really helpful to be able to provide that character of competition, to peel back,
So
that
you
super.
guys actually look and see who or can kind of guide your client, uh, who's actively marketing heavily of the of the competition, and who the who as like, I guess the question that a lot of these doctors may have is, how do I differentiate myself? How do I, as I go into a competitive market, how do I differentiate myself? And part of it is you have to market towards, your, you know, as you put it, your perfect client that your practice, that you've chosen for your practice strategy. But, you know, I imagine there's more to it than that. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, you can always dig deep on who the competition is, and then you get into marketing and how to stand out. And we don't do marketing, but it, when doctors just ask me for more like general advice on like how do I stand out or how do I interpret my competition, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like look at the practices in your area that most resemble who you truly would consider to be competition. So if 3 or 4 of the nearest 10 competitors are DSOs or Heartland Dental or whatnot, like, they can be scary, I guess. They're worth knowing about, but they probably don't practice relationship-based dentistry like our clients do. And that's almost all of our clients are that type of doc that wants to bring a practice to the community, to be a part of the community and know their patients. So again, going back to it is like figure out who to you would be the scariest competitors. And I don't mean like a million Google reviews and the shiniest website, but just like who looks like they're plugged in with the community, because I think that's a very important thing as well, is, being a local business that's accessible and friendly and going to be there for a long time. And there's not a bunch of doctor turnover. So yeah, figure out again, like who to you would you consider the strongest competition? Who looks like they have their act together the best? Who do you admire that's also a competitor? That's who I would think is you're going head to head again.
Yeah, I mean, our clients, they they hire us because, they want to start up, and they have a lot of super challenging decisions to make that are really, really expensive. And
Hmm.
our jobs as as their advocates are trying to give them the best tools so that they can make the best decisions. And because it's not always a black and white or an easy answer. There's so many shades of gray, and so many different layers. And so it is complicated. But at the end of the day, they need to have that level of comfort that they have the best data and the best information so that they can make the best decision for themselves at that particular time. Um,
Hmm.
what
Yeah.
if there was just one demographic factor, that you or maybe what are the top 3 demographic factors that you would that you would consider, or that a new dentist should consider when identifying one of these municipalities or these submarkets, for example? What are the top three?
To me, what comes to mind right away is competition, population density, and then demand for dental care, which you can look at as being there's branches off of that, right? It's not just income, but it's like income and age and homeownership and growth and educational attainment, things like that. Those all kind of go to me into demand for dental care. So going back to competition, obviously you want an area that's more underserved as opposed to overserved. Population density, you ideally would have a large market for dental care nearby. Population density is great. And for those who, I guess, don't know, it's just having a lot of people packed into a relatively small area. And I'm not talking about Manhattan, but I'm talking about like, okay, well, if we have a 3-mile radius around a potential office site and there's 100,000 people, that's a pretty dense market where you're going to, for one, have a large market to work with. So there's a lot of people living nearby that you can potentially make patients. So in terms of marketing, it gives you a lot of at-bats the plate where you can make these 100,000 people living within 3 miles of your office a potential patient. If you only had 10,000 people living within 3 miles, well, that's a small college arena. You don't have that many opportunities to connect with the people in that area. Population density also allows you to take on additional competition more. So if there's 10,000 people and 3 practices, well, things are okay right now if you're looking at residents per dental practice, but you add in practice 4, 5, 6, all of a sudden that market that you're working out of becomes a lot more competitive pretty much overnight or as soon as those new competitors move in. So density allows you to take on or absorb competition better. And then it just also allows you to specialize more. So whatever type of dentistry you want to focus on, having more people just of all walks of life in your, market allows you to do that much better. So going back to it, competition, the less is better, population density, and then demand for dental care. Going back to it, so things like income and educational attainment and median age. So maybe we're looking in blanking on it was Royal Oak, maybe Michigan or Detroit neighborhood where median household income might be 115,000. So it looks a little bit high on paper, but then you look at median age and maybe it's 32. And it's 32 because a lot of young people live in that community. So maybe there's a lot of like 18 to 34-year-olds living in that area. These are people that don't go to the dentist. So having like an overrepresentation of young people is not going to be great for restorative dental care if that's what you want to do. And then also looking at things like homeownership and educational attainment, if I didn't already say that. But are these people committed to the area long term? Are they going to be like reliable patients or are they transient? And that might go back into that Royal Oak example where, hey, even though income is high and education's high, those are 2 good things, but maybe homeownership's way low and maybe median age is on the way low side too. You can't really rely on a strong demand for dental care among young people who, although they have money and they're educated, probably don't need a ton of work on their teeth, as well as they don't really value probably staying totally up to it. And then lastly, as soon as their lease ends, they're going to move to the suburbs because they're having their first kid. So between the 3, going back to it again, competition, density, and demand for dental care would be the 3 things that to me come up as the most important.
When you're working with specialists, how do you help them understand who are going to be the best referral partners in an area, or where they're going to have the best access to referral partners?
Yeah, a big factor in our specialist reports. So the ones that come to mind are going to be pretty much all the pediatric dentists. They don't really rely on GP referrals as much, but like orthodontists, endodontists, oral surgeons, and periodontists. A big lifeline of your practice is going to be having a significant presence of GPs nearby for referring purposes. Now, in some cases, we're going to be looking at character competition again. So, hey, this is a multi-specialty office. You're unlikely to receive referrals from this office because it's a Aspen Dental. And they have a GP an orthodontist, and an oral surgeon on staff. That's not a GP, even though they have a GP. That's not one that you can rely on for referrals. But in general, we're going to put pretty big emphasis when we're narrowing down what's a good location for an endodontist. Where is there a large potential referral base of GPs nearby?
Can you share what some of those ratios might look like? And again, without giving away the farm, our viewers like these packets of information, these pro tips, if you will.
Yeah, if we have north of 30 GPs for every specialist, that's starting to get good or be a positive that we might point out in a report. If we have an area where there's no endodontist, but there's only 12 referring GPs nearby, we'd say that there might be a lack of a potential referral base because there's 12 and not 30. If you want to look at residents per endodontist or residents per oral surgery practice, we try and shy away from having like, hey, our 2001 or our 3001 like we do with GP. I think a good number to strive for would be look at the statewide number. So if you're ever curious, you can just on our website for free, click on our map and see statewide figures. So searching, okay, endodontist in the state of Michigan, how many people per endodontist are there? Wherever you're looking, if you can match that statewide number or be better than it, I'd say you're doing pretty good. With that in mind, that's a lot easier said than done in some of the more desirable or traditionally competitive markets like Metro Detroit, as opposed to in the most remote part of the Upper Peninsula.
You got Michigan pretty well covered with all your examples. We appreciate that. And then what about? I'm assuming that 1 to 3 mile radius broadens a bit with specialists when you're looking
Absolutely.
at the
Yeah. So when we are like mapping out a study area for a doctor, so basically using a scale of analysis, that's what we call it. So when we talk about like a 5 mile radius, to me, that's a scale of analysis. When we're selecting scales of analysis for a general dentist, if we're in Metro Detroit, so not downtown Detroit, but also, a little bit of a ways outside the city. So anywhere where people would use DTW as their airport, we're probably using a 3 mile radius. As we get further out, we might be using a 5 mile radius. For specialists, we usually start with 5, or it really depends where, but we figure out what makes sense. But in most cases, what makes sense is based on population density. In most cases, we try and use larger scales of analysis for specialists just because people are used to traveling greater distances. You have a larger geographic market footprint as an endodontist. People will travel, 3 towns over to go to one, as opposed to GP is totally convenience based and just proximity to where an office is.
Fair enough.
One thing that I
Nick.
really like about your reports is they're pretty and easy to the maps they're easy to read and they're fun and they're engaging. It's not just I'm not just looking at like Remy had said earlier, zeros and ones or lines in the matrix. It's I'm a visual learner, and so those charts or those your maps are really helpful. I
might have been picking on a couple of your competitors in with that comment, but because it can be difficult. But I agree that your maps are the coloration and the way that they're organized is simplified, and obviously I think it's invaluable having those walkthrough conversations with you and our mutual clients. In many cases, it's necessary, but no question, it's a much simpler, visually driven experience.
And that's intentional. Like we were in our mid 20s when this company took off, so we were on the younger side. And to us, a good product wasn't a data dump in like an Excel spreadsheet or even like a table on a PDF with 50 pages. And like, what do you get out of that? It's got to be easy to digest. And the goal's always got to be too, even though we almost always walk our clients through a product or a report, we want to make it as easy as possible for them, if that conversation were to not happen, also interpret it on their own. So definitely intentional to make them pretty, make them easy to digest and all that.
No, I mean, in numerous occasions, we've had clients who have worked with you or are in the process of working with you bring those maps to us, and and it helps us with our research and decision making, too. So to be fair, they provide enough information for us to act on and
Right.
and get to work on. So,
And we're here at Dentagraphics, we are agents of getting this process done. Because, you guys want it, we want it, and most of all, the person doing the project wants it. It's like, can we move this thing along? And we pride ourselves on being a proponent of that, pushing along in a productive, yet consistent way of, hey, this report, can somebody act on it then, right? And that's big for us. So glad to hear that.
I just went onto your website, and it appears that you guys maybe have practice mailers and direct mail function. So do you do some marketing, or?
So let's look at the dentagraphics.com. If you look at our logo at the top left, it says start, buy, and grow. We're really big, obviously, in the start and buy phase. We have started now into the grow phase. So what I mean by that is we help doctors start practices. We help doctors buy practices. We also help doctors grow practices. One tool in the grow, tier or whatever you want to think of it as is targeted direct mail. That's really the extent of marketing that we do and that we're going to do. We have a tool built out where a existing practice owner can schedule a campaign directly in our cloud-based software to say, hey, I want to send mailings out to new movers within 10 miles of my office site, where they have this in terms of income, they have this many kids, they own their homes, they moved in the past 6 months or 12 months or whatever, homeowners, married, etc. So we can get really targeted on that. Do them recurring. So like if you want to send a mailer out every month or every other month or whatever, you can do that too. So those are obviously tools that are focused a little bit more on the growth side of things. Like a doctor that's starting to practice, who we work with all the time. Hey, associate doctor, don't own a practice yet, but I won't want to in 2 years. That tool doesn't do anything for them, but could we build out tools that would help an existing owner once the doors are open and help them grow?
so what percentage? And I know it's heavy on the on the first time practice owner side. I think you mentioned that early here, but what percentage of your business is first time practice owners, whether it's a startup path or an acquisition path versus an established doctor looking to, outgrow in their space, looking to expand? Usually that second move in their career, if
Yeah.
you will, or opening up a second, third, fourth, fifth location.
Yeah, it's hard to say percentages. I mean, I'd say the biggest percentage of our clients are going to be first time buyers or starters. A significant portion is going to be people that 7 years ago we helped them start their first practice, and now they're looking to start practice 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
We also work with CSOs of all sizes. We work with a ton of like consultants and real estate agents and brokers now too. So practice brokers, marketing firms, things like that. So it's all one big hodgepodge, but the most common client is still today probably going to be first time starter or buyer.
For multi-site, multi-location practices, I imagine it's probably just an extra layer for you guys, but it gets interesting, I imagine, when you're not, in addition to what you would otherwise be looking for a new location, you're also considering where their other locations are. Does that play a role? And
Yeah.
maybe I'm overthinking this, but that gets kind of neat, trying to understand what is a different dynamic or something that you're additionally looking for, if it's anything more than just that, is some consideration for your existing locations.
Yeah, we have, there's a few things that come to mind. We have a tool for one called Patient Plotter, that's for the Grow user as well, where I have an existing practice. It's at 123 Main Street. I want to expand to my second location. Let me plot my patients out at that practice onto a map at the address level see where they're coming from, see how far they're driving, see what direction they're coming from. That is a good starting point to figuring out, what is that practice's market on a map. And then, okay, practice number 2, let's make sure we're not going to be close enough where we're going to cannibalize that existing patient base. Let's also make sure we're close enough where it's going to be efficient for a lot of the same staff, a lot of the same team to go back and forth between. And then in other ways, we help them where, if the doctor wants maybe a report and they come to us and they say, hey, I have my existing location in this town. We say, okay, we can, just almost like put like a invisible or a pretend non-compete around it. Like, let's say 5 miles away from it. So act as if they're under a non-compete where we know we want to stay 5 miles away from practice number 1, so that when we look at sites, we're still going to assess which areas outside of that are the best. So we're going to do like our typical process. Or we're just going to pretend like we can't start up practice number 2 within 5 miles of the existing office.
Very nice.
So the software that you're actually, how much time do you actually spend with with your client, or are they mostly buying this service and kind of plugging in the data themselves, or am I starting to go off the deep end here?
No. So I said earlier, we've been around for about 10 years now. The first 7 years, we exclusively sold dental demographic reports. These are PDF reports, customized, prepared by us for a doctor. It's the we do it for you approach where, we're not consultants by any means, but we are consultants in this very specific matter, where you're hiring us to be your consultant on, is 123 Main Street a good location for my practice? Or, hey, I'm in Rochester Hills, Michigan. I'll go anywhere within 30 minutes. You tell me the best areas. We've got reports that cover those situations. Rewind the clock about 3 years ago. We didn't just come up with this idea overnight. We wanted to come up with a platform or software where it was a little bit more DIY. So a doctor, in not just doctors, but a lot of people in the industry, I think, have used for it now, where there's tools on here where you can get instant information anywhere in the country in an unlimited capacity. And that was kind of the birth of our, what we call Start by Membership, where there are tools on our web application where doctors can go in and on their own time. I'm always very try and stress that it's a DIY tool, so it is on your own time. Do your research, and we've built out the tools, I think, to make it as easy as possible. It's pretty user friendly. So there is that self-serve option of our software. With that said, after I am very clear on its self-serve, and we expect our users to use it because they're paid users, they've signed up and they've spent a decent amount of money to be on there. We expect them to use it. We hope they use it. We hope they become habit users. With all that said, we work with those people all the time to do a screen share over Google Meets and look at a few locations that they have. So not just like showing them how to use it one time, which we do in onboarding calls, what we call it, with those new paid members, but also, hey, we did your onboarding call 6 weeks ago. Now you actually went out and you're working with Nick and you have 4 properties. Let's get on a Google Meet. It'll be a little less formal because, we're talking over video chat and we're not writing out a formal report. But we'll just talk through each location to make sure at the end of the day, you get what you need to feel pretty good about that, decision-making process that they're in. So yes, there's software. We make sure that it's known, it's self-serve, it is DIY, but we work with our doctors all the time to get the most out of it. And that's just like a
is there an extra?
No. It's I mean, I think it's part of just making sure customer experience and success is all on point. So if I can help somebody understand things a little bit better and be a little bit more sure about what could be a very expensive decision at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're there for them. So we don't like limit the number of calls. We don't say, hey, you get 3 calls. Like we're not, these like unreachable ghosts that you can't get a hold of. Like I want to make sure that if somebody's paid to be on our platform, then they're getting everything that they need. So we're usually just a email away. So, hey, Kevin, today's Tuesday. Do you have time Thursday or Friday? And almost always I can find a 20-minute window to connect.
You talked about, one of the hopes that you have with that platform is habitual usage. So, and if I understood you correctly, does that mean that doctors are using the information on an ongoing basis to make management decisions or inform their marketing initiatives and efforts, or something else altogether? Did I understand that correctly? That they'd be using this on an ongoing basis?
I think somewhere in between. So what I mean by that is somebody signs up. When you sign up, the sign up terms have you sign up for 3 months, and it goes month to month after that. So at minimum, you are on our platform as a paid member for 90 days. What I mean by habit users is you don't just sign up and you run 6 searches and then it gets dusty and you never use it again. But because you signed up, you made an investment to learn more about different areas that are interesting to you. And ideally, you're already in the site selection process and you're going to be going out and looking at sites with your local real estate agent, getting in the habit of when you are doing those things and you're staying on top of it because you are meeting with your real estate agent. Your real estate agent is out looking at properties for you and finding what's available. When those things are all going on, that you're making it a habit to go back into Dentagraphics and see what you need to see with us.
Got it. So the habit is still contextually still within that time frame where that's going to lead to you making a decision on your project.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because I mean, a big pain point for a lot of doctors is time. I didn't have the time, and then when I do have the time, it's in my last 20 minutes after I put the kids to bed. And I know that's a lot to ask. Like, hey, you have 20 minutes, get on Dentagraphics. Like that's not what I'm saying, but a big pain point is time. But when you do have time, whenever time frees up, if you did buy this, try and do your best to get on there and make sure you take advantage of it.
Nick and I both have young kids, and so many of our clients do also. And so it is after you put the kids to bed or just trying to sneak in time here or there, because it's your full-time job practicing dentistry. You get your second full-time job as a parent in many cases. And we're all asking our clients to do, carve out even more time. And it's worth it, right? It's worth it for them to stay tuned into their Dentagraphics platform so that they can continue to evaluate and make the decisions. It's important for them to get all of their paperwork in for us to the banks or for any other number of parts of the project so that we can keep things moving forward. It's a lot. It is asking a lot. So
yeah, and I don't think I've ever been yelled at by a client for encouraging the staying on top of this, what essentially is a dream for a lot of these people.
Right.
You're never going to be the bad guy. Maybe it's like, well, can I just take a nap? Be the reaction. But at the end of the day, it comes from a good place. And I said earlier, we're agents of trying to get this process done, moving and done. And it all sort of starts there. So.
It's interesting.
As far as trends go, everyone who isn't trying to early identify a trend and get in front of something, right? But as far as dentistry goes, and whether it's 3 years, 5 years, or more down the line with delivering dentistry and the needs of patients evolving, with insurance and fee schedules evolving, there's different parts of the industry that are inevitably changing, even though some things should always stay the same. Do you see anything interesting or concerning, or anything that you think we might see in the coming years and try to get ahead of?
So for us, I mean, a big part is just watching where doctors are wanting to go and start and buy practices. So kind of that geographic shift between a lot of the Midwest, which, I was born and raised in the Midwest, and then I myself moved down to Texas, and I ended up coming back. But that's, I think, a path that a lot of people take, and that's going to translate into just where practices pop up all over the map as well. So watching as a lot of practices close down in your Bostons and New Jerseys and Chicagos and Detroits and Clevelands and open up in your Atlantas and Raleighs and Charlottes and Vegas and Phoenix and all the big Texas towns. Beyond that, I mean, we also notice that it seems like more as opposed to less, just maybe COVID was a big shift. More doctors now come to us with the first goal to being to acquire a dental practice. Startups are a long process. Can be expensive. We still work with a ton of startups, but it feels like more, and I don't know if this is just our brand growing and getting more into the acquisition route, but it seems like a lot more doctors do come to us just with that first goal of, hey, not looking to do a startup. And trust me, we have people contact us every day looking to do a startup, but a bigger share now is coming to us with, hey, I'm looking to acquire a practice. That's the first conversation we have. And that doctor might end up starting a practice and never buying one, but the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I want to buy a practice. That seems to be a lot more common as well. And then obviously, my brother works in the DSO space, sort of. He works for a company called McLaren and Associates. It's going to be interesting to see what happened there in terms of private ownership versus, large corporation company ownership and that whole landscape. I feel like we're never going to see the locally owned private practice owner model go away, but I think that all kind of remains to be seen as well. So
Yeah,
it certainly
that's
won't go
interesting.
away. It just, will it shift in terms of its how common or whatnot it is based on what's happening currently with DSOs in the past, 5-10 years, and will that continue? Who knows?
I've been navigating around Michigan on your website, looking at different set market saturations and whatnot, and seeing how many practices, yeah, for example, of oral surgeons are in this county versus that county, and I wonder whether that statistics, when I actually pay for it, I can actually see, are these, because there might be, single practitioner type of dental practice versus more of a group, like if we're talking about oral surgery groups or endo groups, there might be
Sure.
4 or 5 docs or who knows what. And so I wonder how you guys use that, or how you guys differentiate that when working with somebody. Is it
So,
actually the number of docs, uh, more
no,
so than
when you're looking at like practice counts, that's just going to be how many practices there are of that specialty. So like one oral surgery practice, if you're in a county in Michigan and it says there's 3 oral surgery practices, 2 of them could be privately owned oral surgery practices, and one could be one could be an Aspen Dental with an oral surgeon that our research team identified on the staff there. We don't use practitioner count. It's not because we don't think it's useful or worthwhile. It's because it's impossible to get with the level of certainty that we want to have when we report what we report. So there's no office that's obligated to tell us, hey, we have 5 practitioners on the staff at this office. You can use some pretty good clues, such as a practice's website, to help get you there, but you don't know for certain, like, hey, Dr. Smith, who has no website, do you have 1 or is it 2? How many docs are there? What we can tell is that Dr. Smith is open. So based on that, we're just going to stick with number of practices when we report back, hey, level of competition. And it's because, again, we can't get to that level of certainty that we want to get to when we use this or when we report back to our customers.
Really cool. So this is really awesome. How long has this version been available to your clients?
The Start By membership, which has gone through a couple name changes, it's been around for 3 years at this point. So 2024 going on 2025, almost 4 years maybe. And we've just built out like functionality. We've built out new tools. We're always tweaking stuff and trying to make as good of a, as user friendly and informative of a platform that we can. So there's been a million things that have been added in over the years, such as like insights, right? So if you click on an insights tab after you run a address search over a property, where we still do, but we originally just told you, okay, here's how many people, here's how many practices, here's income, here's growth, here's homeownership, here's education, here's age. Well, if you click on insights now, so that's a newer tool, it'll tell you context about that data. So maybe it's going to point out that competition relative to the Detroit metro area or Wayne County is low, and it ranks in the 90th percentile for competition relative to the state or relative to the Detroit metro area. Maybe it'll tell you that 70% of adults over the age of 25 have obtained a bachelor's degree or something more advanced than that. So it's an educated market, right? So just putting a little bit of feedback or context to the data to help it make sense. But just an example of, we didn't have that insights tool a year and a half ago, but it was something that we always wanted to add. So there's a bunch of stuff that it's like, okay, can we make this better? Can we make it smarter? Can we make it more usable as possible? So yeah, a lot goes into it. And to be honest with you, this is kind of like our, as a company, it's like our pride and joy, I guess, because the reports are one thing, they'll never go away. We'll always do them. But this stuff is more fun for us to kind of build and create and improve on, is the software that we have.
And so how often do you kind of go back and make sure that your data, as far as practices and that type of thing, is correct? Is that just ongoing? You just
Yeah. Every practice that you see in our database has been hand verified by a human, meaning a human on our US-based research team has looked at it. Each practice is re-verified annually. And then in the meantime, we have a maintenance system in place where if a practice gets marked as permanently closed, or a website breaks, or permanently closed on Google, or a website breaks, or a phone number goes invalid, or anything like that, it'll get flagged into our system, where then it's up for our research team to kind of work through and make sure, hey, did this change? Did it change names? Did it close down? So we keep that as accurate and up to date as possible. So we throw a lot of energy into the competition database. And I know it might annoy some people, but that's why, like, if you're clicking around on our website and you copy and paste, or you try to copy and paste the name of a practice and its address, and then you paste, it'll allow you to copy, but then when you go to paste, it'll say copying is not allowed on this web page. And it's just because our competition database, while it's not very interesting, it's probably the most important thing that we've developed for our business over the years. So
yeah, that's awesome. So you guys are actually, this is your own proprietary database that you're sharing. That's as opposed to
the competition, exactly.
All right,
anything else?
let's talk. We're probably thinking the same thing and going in the same direction here. So I'll talk about can you share the best piece of advice that you've been given, or you can provide a piece of advice for dentists.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me is we're small business owners here. I'm the 50-50 owner of this company, so there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know about when we started this business, and it's scary. And you're a business owner, and you never go to school on how to be a business owner. Most people don't, at least. You just become a business owner one day, and the same is for practice ownership. I guess my advice would be to arm yourself with as much knowledge and as good of a team as you possibly can, but don't be scared to fall a little bit flat at some point or be discouraged. Just keep moving along. The startup process specifically is not meant to be easy. It's not meant to be quick. You are going to run into things. You'll never be fully ready. If you want to wait until you're fully ready to start the startup process, you'll probably never start. I think it kind of has similarities to becoming a parent, where you're never fully ready. Again, if you waited your entire life, you'd probably never be fully ready. You just have to jump in and do the best you can and keep it moving and not lose sight on the prize at the end of the day. So we can relate to that. Again, it's just being small business owners that have had to learn a lot of stuff on the fly. But it's gotten us to a good place. Just, again, being discouraged and then motivated at times and back and forth, and just keep helmet on, keep moving. And if you stay with it, good things will come. Guess that's my advice.
It's great advice, and as a parent, it certainly resonates with me, and I see that likeness every day. I think you're right.
I'm a parent to be, so it's like it's all scary stuff. Had a 20-week ultrasound appointment today. But we're ready. Again, we'll never be fully ready. There's going to be scary moments and whatnot. And every once in a while, you're just thinking about it. You get a little pit in your stomach. But at the end of the day, it's exciting over anything else. So
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm sure
thank you.
you'll
Being
be
a
up for
parent
the
is
task.
awesome.
You don't ever show up to it with any skills, but I guess it's happened so many times. I mean, I think it's just natural. You just some of this stuff is ingrained in you. But yeah, we tell our clients the same thing. It's like, hey, start. There's no right or wrong time to start a practice, just like there's no right or wrong time to have a kid.
Right.
Sometimes sometimes you just but
So,
when it happens, you got to be 100% on board.
right.
It's probably harder to measure the success rate of raising kids against, a dental, the success rate of a practice owner, which
Mhm.
we know is 97% or higher,
Right.
market to market. But generally speaking, it's up there. You've got a really, 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 really good chance of being successful as a dentist and as a parent. So hopefully that helps as you get inch closer to becoming a parent. So
Yeah.
If you could
I
go,
uh I was just gonna add real quick. It's a little bit. I mean, compared to what we were just talking about, it's sort of funny. My brother used to work for Bank of America way back, and well, not way back, but I think he was telling me this way back. He would give a presentation to a group of people, and he'd say the most successful practice that never, it's the most successful business that never um, flopped, funeral home. Everybody can understand why. The number
yep,
two is dental. So
that's right. Was he in Practice Solutions?
yeah,
Very nice.
is that how you got? I mean, well, you got pulled into this from your college buddy. It just so happens that he was also
he
in dental.
he was a big force of motivation. I think he was the one who was talking to Kent at the time, and they kind of collaborated on the idea a little bit together. But Justin, my brother, was certainly a big part of just, here's how this stuff all works. Here's who you need to know. Here's who would make sense for a dental demographics company to know. And being a little bit of a big brother advisor, just having worked in the industry for a bit himself.
That is a cool story. I mean, 10 years ago, things were really different than they are today.
Yep. Yep.
So if you could go back and talk to that 20-year-old self, what would you tell them?
Gonna work out really well. It's gonna, I think, looking at my very first paycheck with Dentagraphics was not very fun, but we are in a unbelievable place right now. So I'd say it's gonna work out. You guys are gonna build something really cool. You're gonna learn how this stuff works, and it's never gonna be super easy, but it's gonna get a lot easier along the way. And you're gonna have some weird stuff happen, like COVID pandemic, but just keep with it. A lot of people would have reacted to that in 2015. Whoa, in 5 years there's going to be a potential world shutdown. But we got through it, and
It's
where
crazy.
we're at today. And now all of a sudden, that's almost 5 years ago.
Hard to believe. Hard to
We
believe.
are, always, we look forward to working with you guys on projects, and, thrilled to have you share your time with us. So
Yeah, it's been a good time. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. Well, we can wrap it up here. Thank you so much.
we are.